To be completely frank, my initial gut reaction was one of disgust. We're never going to reform. I come at this from the perspective, the radical perspective, that migrants, people seeking asylum, refugees are human beings who have a right to live and work and build a life. When I hear my party talking about, using rhetoric, echoing Nigel Farage, like being an island of strangers, untold damage, that is not a party that I recognise. That would not be out of place in a far-right party.
Nadia Whittome, welcome to PoliticsJOE. For those who might not be familiar with you, how would you like to introduce yourself?
I'm Nadia Whittome, I'm the Labour Member of Parliament for Nottingham East.
And we're here to discuss the government's white paper on legal immigration, which came out this morning. But first, you've submitted an amendment to the Borders Bill. Can you tell us about that?
So people in our asylum system are dying in record, horrifying numbers. From what we know, and the statistics are murky because the Home Office doesn't record and publish this data, but from what we know, 2024 was the deadliest year on record for people seeking asylum. The UN estimates that 82 people died crossing the Channel, including 14 children, but French authorities and French charities actually estimate that it's significantly higher than that. On top of that, Freedom of Information requests reveal that 51 people died in asylum accommodation, including a 15-year-old boy, 2 babies. And what the amendment does is it introduces a legal duty on the government to collect and publish this data, because in order to save lives, we need to know how many people are losing their lives, why they're losing their lives, where and how, and to know whether we're making progress on saving lives, we need to know the numbers.
So that is in the Borders Bill, which the amendment's set to be chosen later in summer. But right now we have the white paper on legal migration, which the government released this morning. What is your immediate reaction to some of the measures in that paper?
To be completely frank, my initial gut reaction was one of disgust. When I hear my party talking about, using rhetoric, echoing Nigel Farage, like being an island of strangers, untold damage, that is not a party that I recognise. That would not be out of place in a far-right party. We're seeing the right in politics scapegoating and demonising and dehumanising migrants and people seeking asylum, blaming them for the very real problems of a housing crisis, of public services that have been chronically underfunded over the last decade and a half. And instead of legitimising that narrative and giving it airtime, we should be calling it out, and we should be actually fixing the problems that people are worried about and that we were elected to fix. And if my party is serious about governing and leaving the country in a better state in 5 years than what we inherited last year, then that is what it will do. It will fund public services, it will increase wages, tax wealth, because it's not migrants or people of colour who are to blame for society's problems. It's systemic issues like rising inequality, systematic underfunding of our public services, landlordism, exploitative bosses.
Do you think that some of that rhetoric and some of the measures that we've seen from the Labour government on immigration is a direct response to the surge in popularity that we're seeing with reform?
I think it is, and it's a huge mistake, because we're never going to reform. We shouldn't want to, but it's not possible to, because we will never go far enough for them. So instead, we need to be calling out the real culprits behind deindustrialisation, exploitation of workers, exploitation of tenants, underfunding of public services, the fact that our communities are falling apart. And we need to be offering real solutions to those things, not scapegoating. Like when the Prime Minister says that we're becoming an island of strangers, migrants aren't strangers. They're our families. They're my family. They're our friends. They're my constituents who I represent. And if we are becoming an island of strangers, and I think there is kind of fragmentation and division, then firstly, this isn't helping that, it's making it worse. But also, that's because of a decade and a half of austerity, because our community centres and youth groups have been shut down, our councils have been systematically underfunded. Let's start by giving cities like Nottingham our money back and taking money away from the super rich, people who got rich by gambling on the stock market and by exploiting tenants as corporate landlords, and let's give that money instead to our communities and to people who actually create wealth in this country, which is workers.
That rhetoric, Ireland of strangers, Zara Sultana, your former Labour Party colleague, she compared that to Enoch Powell's Rivers of Blood speech. Do you think that's a fair comparison?
Well, they're clearly, if you compare some of the rhetoric in the speech that we heard today with the speech that you mentioned, then it's not really a matter of opinion. There are some similarities, and we cannot be going down that path as a party.
Let's talk about some of the specific things that you're concerned about that are in the white paper today. I mean, we saw that the Labour government want to introduce an increased requirement for English language skills. They want to end the recruitment of overseas social care workers. They want to reduce the number of workers and students dependents that can come to the UK as well. What in there is specifically concerning to you?
All of it is. They're all bad policies, and they're not going to fix the problems that people are facing, and people are facing many, many real and serious problems after a decade and a half of the Tories being in power. Firstly, on care workers. So I used to be a care worker. My colleagues were both people who were born in this country and people who weren't. All of them were outstanding at their job. All of them were underpaid and didn't have the conditions at work that they should have had. We have a vacancy of 150,000. That's the vacancy gap. 150,000 care workers that we need more of. And at the same time, we've got an ageing population. Why are we prepared to tank the social care system, which is already on its knees, for the sake of what? Trying to ape reform? Something that we're never going to succeed at doing, that we shouldn't want to succeed at doing, that will never improve people's lives. People are going to be harmed by that. We need to be investing in our social care system. We need a national care service. We need to be dealing with the real kind of workplace issues, which are that exploitation is rife. We handle that by calling employers to account and making them improve paying conditions for all workers, whether they were born here or not. On the English language requirement stuff, I mean, many people do come here already speaking English. Many people come here because they have family and friends in the UK and they want to be able to build a life here, particularly if they're forced out of their home country and it doesn't look like it will be safe for them to return for a long time. I think that support should be available for people who don't speak English at a particularly high level to be able to improve their language skills. Of course, that support did exist and it was cut by the Tories. But also, there are things that the government could easily introduce which would be good for the economy, good for people's kind of being able to put down roots here, and good for cohesion, if you like. Give people seeking asylum the right to work. That's how you kind of improve people's language skills and help people to build a sense of community and togetherness with other people. And I think the reason the Tories didn't want to do that was because people will start to see that people seeking asylum are not people who are so different from them. They're people with families, with humanity, with shared interests, particularly in the workplace. The other thing that I'm really concerned about is measures that reduce people's rights once they get here. So Article 8 is a check on authoritarianism and state power. Disapplying that to migrants actually has the potential to undermine everybody's rights. Equally, making people wait for a minimum of 10 years before they can apply for residency. Like this, I think what people will see when they read that is they'll know somebody who came from another country and they'll think that's unfair, or they themselves will have come from another country, or their families will have, and they'll feel like they're not welcome here because of policies like that. It's pointless. What is it trying to achieve? It's divisive, and it just does the opposite of bringing communities together. Like, we unite communities based on our shared interests of, wanting to live a decent life, to have secure housing, a secure job, to live in a community that is clean and well funded and has community centres. We don't do it by dividing people and dehumanising people in this way.
The Labour government said that the reforms that they're looking to introduce via this white paper are fair. Clearly, we don't agree with that. What does fair immigration reform look like? And do you even think that the stated goal of reducing net migration, which the Labour government are pursuing, is a goal that they should be pursuing?
Okay, so I come at this from the perspective, the radical perspective, that migrants, people seeking asylum, refugees, are human beings who have a right to live and work and build a life wherever they want to. I think that that's an inalienable, fundamental human right. But if you're looking at it, that aside, from the perspective of the government, that we want to grow the economy, why on earth would the government want to reduce net migration? Like, these are people who, as well as being human beings, who have autonomy and agency, are people who contribute to our economy, bring skills, bring not just things that can be measured in GDP, but, culture, and improve our communities, make Britain what it is. Like, Britain was built on migration. You can't unpick that from the national story, or, the tapestry that we are would just unravel. This very much looks like doing something that we know will damage the economy, as well as dividing communities, all for the sake of appearing tough on migration, which, as I say, is not a solution to people's problems. And we do actually have the power to introduce some of those solutions to people's problems, because we won an election last year with a landslide majority. So if we're serious about governing, let's just get on and do that.
Nadia Whittome, thanks so much for chatting with me today.
Thank you.